is in the church. It's not just in the church. It's in our churches.
Trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in a state of war. Undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the YouTube channel once again. You're here with Pastor James Devalon. Listen, we have a very, very, very important video. Okay, we will dabble in a realm of politics, but we're not staying there because it's not so much political. For those of you who do understand how the spiritual warfare is being fought, this thing is spiritual. Yes, it is being fought in different areas of our world, whether it is nature, society, politics, and religion, whichever way you want to look at that. But the fact of the matter is, it's a spiritual battle, and we understand that we are in a war for our souls. There's a war against the truth, but even more, there's a war against the law of God. Okay, so the same war that begun in heaven, translated to the earth, that war is being fought in ways that will blow your mind. A lot of it has to do with the ideologies. It's a serious word, ideologies, right? What are the ideologies? How do you address an ideology? And what impact is it having on the psyche of the masses? And what influence does it have with the laws of the land? And where is it going to go from a prophetic understanding? These are some of the questions we plan on answering today. So I have on my screen here Yuri Bezmenov, and he's talking something about that is entitled ideological subversion. This man was a KGB defector, and the man, serious wisdom to work with. Listen, this stuff is not just political. This stuff, the idea that he's speaking about, is in the church. It's not just in the church. It's in our churches. I'm going to show you how this is happening. First of all, he speaks about three different ideologies. The three ideologies that he speaks about, he entitles them, let me get to the bottom of this article here. He entitles them ideological subversions. So there are three of them. The first one is demoralization, and the second one is destabilization, and the third one is crisis, and last but not least is normalization. So it's four, not three. So there's demoralization, destabilization, a crisis, and also normalization. So you think of this process from a spiritual perspective, and remember the word pestilence 19. Remember what happened with that, right? But also look at all the different stuff that's going on in our culture and see how it is sipping in the church. And you're going to see these processes actually being wrought out. It's pretty mind-blowing. So anyway, one of the reasons, again, I've said this is a spiritual matter. And this piece right here called subversion process and how they go about it. And guess who is at the top of the list? Religion. At the top of the list of the ideological subversion, the goal is to subvert what? Religion. But in what way? You're going to see how this is being played out, okay? So we have four different things we're talking about here. Demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. Now, and I'm making this link because I read an article this morning from Advent Messenger. And for those of you who don't know who he is, well, you better get to know him, because we had him on the channel last Sabbath, and I'm going to put a link in the description below. We had a really healthy discussion about things that's going on in the church. Anyway, there he makes a comparison, right? I'm going to read this portion here, and then we're going to watch the video. The controversy surrounding Pastor Stephen Boy cancellation and Dr. Conrad Vine's appearance at the Secret Unsealed Symposium is just another example of how woke ideology has created division in our church, as well as in our society at large. During the 1990s, Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB informant who defected to Canada, tried to warn America about a stratagem known as demoralization, an insidious process designed to turn the reasoning and critical thinking skills of Americans upside down as a first step in creating disunity and ultimately revolution. This process has now become so entrenched in, listen carefully, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Lord have mercy on us. That even the facts that that are right under our noses have become muddled. Okay. I'm going to link this article in the description of this video. You need to go and read this because, I mean, he was preaching the whole way. So let's take a listen. Take a listen. You'll see what I mean as we get into this thing. By the way, link in the description below to the original video. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Share your thought and perspective with me. Check out our merch. Become a member to this channel because we keep the fire burning over here. Let's take a listen.
Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place and
Yes.
who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people. And the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. Obviously they will join the links of dissenters, dissidents.
Yes.
Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be the greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality back to normalcy and patriotism. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world, that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins. Never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in the state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system. And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system, or the world communist conspiracy. Whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect to, unless you want to live in Antarctica with penguins. This is it. This is the last country of freedom and possibility.
Okay, so what do we do? What is your recommendation to the American people?
Well, the immediate thing that comes to my mind is, of course, there must be a very strong national effort to educate people in the spirit of real patriotism, number one. Number two, to explain them the real danger of socialist, communist, whatever, welfare state, big brother government. If people will fail to grasp the impending danger of that development, nothing ever can help United States. You may kiss goodbye to your freedom, including freedoms to homosexuals, to prison inmate. All these freedoms will vanish, evaporate in 5 seconds, including your precious lives. The second thing, the moment at least part of United States population is convinced that the danger is real, they have to force their government. And I'm not talking about sending letters, signing petitions, and all this beautiful, noble activity. I'm talking about forcing United States government to stop aiding communism. Because there is no other problem more burning and urgent than to stop the Soviet military-industrial complex from destroying whatever is left of the free world. And it is very easy to do. No credits, no technology, no money, no political or diplomatic recognition, and of course no such idiocy as grain deals to USSR. The Soviet people, 270 millions of Soviets, will be eternally thankful to you if you stop aiding a bunch of murderers who sit now in Kremlin and whom President Reagan respectfully calls government. They do not govern anything, least of all such complexity as the Soviet economy. So two very simple, maybe too simplistic answers or solutions, but nevertheless they are the only solutions. Educate yourself, understand what's going on around you. You are not living at the time of peace. You are in a state of war, and you have precious little time to save yourself. You don't have much time, especially if you are talking about young generation. There's not much time left for convulsions to the beautiful disco music. Very soon it will go, just overnight. If we are talking about capitalists or wealthy businessmen, I think they are selling the rope on which they will hang very soon. If they don't stop, if they cannot curb their unsettled desire for profit, and if they keep on trading with the monster of the Soviet communism, they are going to hang very soon. And they will pray to be killed, but unfortunately they will be sent to Alaska probably to manage industry of slaves. It's simplistic. I know it sounds unpleasant. I know Americans don't like to listen to things which are unpleasant. But I have defected not to tell you the stories about such idiocy as microfilm, James Bond type espionage. This is garbage. You don't need any espionage anymore. I have come to talk about survival. It's a question of survival of this system. You may ask me, what is it in for me? Survival, obviously, because unlike, as I said, I am now in your boat. If we sing together, we'll sing beautifully together. There is no other place on this planet to defect to.
This was serious. This was a mouthful. I mean, all right, let's go through those 4 steps again of ideological subversions. It speaks about demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. Friends, think about Pestilence 19, right? Think about what happened during the shamdemic, right? Or the plandemic, somebody might say. What happened during that? These were the steps. These were the steps. And now it's become normal, right? It's been normalized. It's the new normal. You heard those terms? And when you see what's happening in the world, you can see how it is having a reflection in the church. And the other thing you notice also is, for example, the different ideologies that are just perverting the world right now, whether it's LGBTQIA plus ideology, whether it is woke ideology, whether it is driven by race or color, or there is open border policies, right? There are different things that different political parties are now wrestling and dealing with. Transgenderism, right? All these different ism and COVIDism. But you can see like a communistic, a Marxistic, and Marxist perspective at the root of it all when you study what the Marxists believed and stuff like that. And this stuff does have an impact on the church. Just when you know that's kind of why I'm making this video, is to show you it really does have an impact on the church, and it's creeping in our churches as well. So demoralization phase is that you expose people, you inundate people with evil, right? And you make it, it's at a point where people become desensitized to it. This is why you can find ministers defending homosexuality in the church. How did that happen? Demoralization. Okay, they've been overexposed and they've been inundated with the stuff that is to the media. Of course, the media is the means to which the enemy really gets his message across. So in so doing, here we are today. You can have people making apologies. We can have apologetics, LGBTQ pastors apologetics. This stuff is in the church. You have kinship in the church. You have all kind of nakedness and weird practices in the church. And I can show you videos to make your skin crawl. I have a whole bunch of stuff I can show you. And I just don't show it out of respect. Because some stuff I wish I didn't see that. It was just too much. So you can see that happening in society, and destabilization as well. You place government above the needs of the people. And this is when we put policies above people. You know what I'm saying? Policies takes the place of the word. We do that in the church too. We do it. There's also a crisis. Yeah, you just need to create a crisis strong enough to bring people to their knees. You know, COVID-19, that was a crisis, right? 9/11, that was a crisis. So any one of those crises will put people in a position where they have to decide for right and wrong. And in the meantime, the echo chamber of the social media, and as well as the media propaganda machine, I like to call them, they will just sound the alarm of those who are driven by the ideologies to push a particular narrative. And as long as that narrative is being pushed, the masses are being brainwashed. And then this is why people stand for certain things that normally they would have never done if they were not sitting in the echo chamber. And this is when you come out and you start speaking about it, it sounds like you look like a fish out of water, because it's just like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, why are you saying stuff like this? And then they name called you to shut you down. That's what happened during Pestilence 19. Okay, so the very few voices that were being lifted up, they were being censored. Shut down. Be quiet. Don't talk about it, right? Because if people are speaking, it doesn't work. So what's the solution here? First of all, when you hear them say peace and safety, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, when they shall say peace and safety, but sudden destruction shall come upon them, as a woman pregnant with child, but they shall not escape. But we are also told that this whole idea is about attacking the law of God at the very root in society. And this is what you're seeing, is that the subversion of society happens by the subversion of biblical truths and the 10 Commandments. So if you attack the law of God and the principles of righteousness, that's the end of the story, because everything else just fall apart. So what you're now seeing is that, for example, the law of God could be attacked, right? Could be violated in some institutions, some churches. They just let it slide. These violations are not really curtailed. They're not addressed. They're left by the wayside, right? And they say we're going to give grace and mercy, which I do understand the perspective, but what we do have now is a pattern of violation. And the more people violate and break the law of God and yet claim to be a Christian, and it is left unaddressed, you create a pattern, and that pattern now becomes almost impossible to fix. And this is where you get to the stage of normalization. Once you normalize the thing, we are at a place now where you say, oh, what's going on here? Where you're in apostasy. In apostasy, that's what happened. You're in apostasy. Friends, the devil is not playing. I say that to say this is a message. I will say, take it as a warning that the enemy is looking to destroy the church. We are in a spiritual warfare. It's happening in the world, but it's also happening in the church. We also have to see how it is being done. What must we do? Draw closer to Jesus, number one. And number two, lift up his word and his truth. Proclaim it from the rooftop. Do it with the love of God, with humility, but do it. So more voices have to speak up to push back against the forces of evil. We must take on the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And not only that, having our feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, preaching and proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. Before I was doing this video, I was reading a quotation from Last Day Events. So I'm gonna put it on your screen, but let me tell you what I read. Prayer and Effort. Testimony for the Church, Volume 4, 538. Listen. Prayer and effort and prayer will be the business of your life. We must pray as though the efficiency and praise were all due to God, and labor as though duty were all your own. Friends, we got to pray, but we got to work. We got to pray for your church, pray for your leaders, pray for the condition of the church, pray for the gospel to go forward, pray for the latter rain, pray for a deeper conversion in the word of God, pray for humility, pray for the truth to conquer hearts. As you do that, work. Serve the Lord with all your hearts, mind, soul, and spirit, and love your neighbor as yourself. In the process, proclaim the gospel. Make noise, share your faith, give Bible studies, talk about Jesus, talk about the issues in the world, address them heads on with the sword of the Spirit in your hands. Speak out your conviction clearly. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Learn from your mistake, grow, make another video, address the things that you may have done wrong in the past, and continue to go forward. Let me tell you something. You're not going to fight in this spiritual battle unless we as Christians not only play the defense, but we also start to go on the offense. We got to fight back against the forces of evil, not just what's going on in the world, but also what's happening in our churches. And it's not safe to be casual and say, let it rip, because prophecy already said these things were going to be so. So let's just take, no. That's not the position of the Christian man. Friends, we got to fight and war and wrestle on behalf of the truth, even at the cost of our lives. But you know what they say, if you're not willing to live for it, you will never be ready to die for it. Thank you so much for listening, friend. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. If you enjoy the content, share your thought with me as well. Check out our merch. YouTube is gonna make a recommendation here. I'm gonna put a list of things here, and check out our store at the top here as well. And yeah, thank you for hanging out with us. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.